Well, hiya, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here at the Ruttenberg Library. Want to come to you with a book haul. So last weekend on, it had been January 28th, I think it was. My family and I went to St. Joe, and we went and did some shopping. And I went to the Jesse James Outlet Mall, and I found some books. And so I wanted to share those with you. We also went to Target. I think it was Target. Yeah, it was Target. Anyway, went to Target and we were shopping for, my wife was looking for something, we were looking for something for my daughter. And of course, every time we go there, we go through the toy aisle. And I always make sure to make it a point to go through the Hot Wheels section. And yes, you guessed it, I found some nice collection of Mustangs. I'll show you those. So, nice little collection there. Was really happy to find those. Some pretty sharp cars. So, let's get on to the books now. I always like to show you my Hot Wheel collection, though. So this collection of books is a little bit of a mixed bag. There's a couple Civil Wars in here, but there's a couple of other things also. So it's not all Civil War. Almost all of its history, with the exception of one book. So let's just go ahead and start with the one book. And I actually talked about this in a previous video because it's on my, I'm going to get it, it's on my TBR to read this month. It's going to be my third Agatha Christie that I read. And this is By the Pricking of My Thumbs by Agatha Christie. Nice hardback selection. And gotta be careful with the paper. I just tore the paper. That was intelligent. The book itself's in really good shape, but the paper is a little bit brittle. This says, and I'll read the inside flap to you. It says, because a sweet old lady disappeared, Tommy and Tuppence Beresford, that shrewd and engaging detective team, came out of retirement to take on their most baffling case. They had gone to visit Tommy's Aunt Ada at Sunny Ridge, a well-run home for elderly ladies. On the surface, Sunny Ridge appeared to be a model of its kind, or was it? Soon after Aunt Ada died peacefully in her bed, her friend, Mrs. Lancaster, left very suddenly in the care of somewhat mysterious relatives. Tuppence had misgivings. Tommy started by poo-pooing them, but Tuppence made up her mind that she would discover what had really happened to old Mrs. Lancaster. Her only clue was an oil painting of a house by a canal. It was to lead Tuppence to a peaceful village where nothing ever happens to a character whom she christened the Friendly Witch, and to hunt through ancient tombstones in a churchyard. Then Tommy returned from a hush-hush conference and found that Tuppence had failed to return from her quest. Brilliantly sustained mystery is always to be found in a novel by Agatha Christie, but her latest story contains an extra element and might equally well have been titled By the Chilling of Your Spine. So, sounds like that'll be a good one, as always, with Agatha Christie. And it says this new one. This is obviously not a new book. It's from Dodd, Mead and Company from New York, and it is a 1968 book. So I'm happy to add that to my Agatha Christie collection. All right, so from this point on, the rest of these books are going to be nonfiction of various sorts. This first book I picked up, and I got it for $2. I was super excited. It was in brand new condition. You can see a nice shine on the cover. This is The Blue Tattoo, The Life of Olive Oatman, with a new postscript by the author. And I had heard of this story many times, but I've never read anything on it. I've never read up on it. This is by Margot Mifflin. Margot, I think it's Margot. Now, I said this was in brand new condition, with the exception of on the ride home, I did the dumbest of things. So we stopped at Walmart and got groceries because the cupboards were bare. And so we were getting groceries. And you guys know the chickens, the rotisserie chickens you can get, and they've got juice in them. Yeah, you guessed it. put it in the trunk. It must have got sideways, and look at what happened to my book. It smelled like chicken for a while. It doesn't smell anymore, but the pages are definitely a little bit wrinkled there on the top for, about an inch down, half an inch down. It's not the whole book, but the front half of the book, and it really irritated me because I got this for only $2. It was brand new. Anyway, in 1851, Olive Oatman was a 13-year-old pioneer traveling west toward Zion with her Mormon family. Within a decade, she was a white Indian with a chin tattoo caught between cultures. The blue tattoo tells the harrowing story of this forgotten heroine of frontier America. Orphaned when her family was brutally killed by the Yavapai Indians, Oatman lived as a slave to her captors for a year before being traded to the Mojaves, who tattooed her face and raised her as their own. She was fully assimilated and perfectly happy when, at 19, she was ransomed back to white society. She became an instant celebrity, but the price of fame was high, and the pain of her ruptured childhood lasted a lifetime. Based on historical records, including letters and diaries of Oatman's friends and relatives, The Blue Tattoo is the first book to examine her life from her childhood in Illinois through the massacre and her captivity and her return to white society to her later years as a wealthy banker's wife in Texas. The Bison Books edition features a postscript by the author with a newly discovered letter from Oatman. And there's a picture of your author. So, like I said, I'm fairly new to this. I've seen it, seen the name, seen the story, but I've never actually read anything on the story. So that'll be nice. Next one is called Rebel Private, Front and Rear, by William A. Fletcher, Memoirs of a Confederate Soldier. And so this was, kind of a thin little volume. Exactly what it says. It's from a rebel's point of view. Thought that'd be interesting to add to my Civil War collection. It's a Meridian book. And again, it's by William A. Fletcher, an introduction by Richard Wheeler, and an afterword by Valley Fletcher Taylor. And this book came out in, it looks like 1997. Originally 95, but 1997. So not very long. Let's see, 223 pages. And so, that'll be a fairly quick read. Good addition to my Civil War collection. Next one is World War I, and it's an area where I do not have a lot of knowledge in World War I. It's World War I, the African Front, an imperial war on the African continent. Pretty cool cover. This book's in really good condition. As you could see, there's that is not an actual wrinkle. That is part of the artwork, but it's in really good shape. Clean white pages. Was very happy to find this. Got it for $3, so you can't beat that. And it is exactly what it says. It's a history of World War I in Africa, which, like I said, you just don't hear a lot about it because most of the fighting was done in Europe and on the eastern and western fronts in Europe. That's what you hear the most about, but you don't hear about the rest of the world, even though there was fighting going on around the world. So that'll definitely help me in my, just my overall knowledge of the war. Next one is a Barnes & Noble publishers. It's The Life of General Nathan Bedford Forrest by John Allen Wythe, with an introduction by Ian Cuthbertson. And so, again, exactly what it says. It's a biography on Nathan Bedford Forrest. Now, he's a pretty notorious character during the Civil War, obviously. But at the same time, he was very good he was a cavalry officer, and he was very good at it. As much as the Union hated him, they feared him as well. And so I thought it'd be interesting to, look into his life. This is, like I said, Barnes & Noble, out of New York, and it comes originally published in 1899. This, of course, was not. This is from 2006. But like I said, thought it'd be interesting. It's a big, thick thing, 652 pages. So I think I did. I hauled another Nathan Bedford Forrest book it was last year, I think. And so I've never read anything on his life. I keep reading in just histories of the Civil War, just how notorious a person he was. And he sounds like he was terrible. But at the same time, as far as a military officer, he kind of knew his stuff, even though he was not necessarily originally a military man. And I think that was part of what made him good at what he did, was he was able to think outside of the box, where a lot of the West Point guys were kind of, stuck in a rut. So let's just save that one for last. Let's go. I got one more Civil War here. It's another Confederate officer. This one's a pretty well-known guy. This is From Manassas to Appomattox by General James Longstreet. And of course, Longstreet was one of the number one guys with General Lee. I got this one for $4, but this is his autobiography or memoir, whatever you want to call it, from the war. And so this will be pretty interesting, because there were some places during the war that he disagreed with Robert E. Lee, and he disagreed with some of the other stuff that was going on. And I just think it would be really interesting to hear it from his point of view. It's from Konecki and Konecki, and published does not have a publisher, or published a year it was published. So I can't give that to you. I'm sorry. I don't see that. So anyway, from Konecki and Konecki, thought that would be interesting read. And last but not least in this haul, trying to keep this short and sweet for you so it's not going half an hour long. This is The Blood of Heroes, the 13-day struggle for the Alamo and the sacrifice that forged a nation by James Donovan. And James Donovan's written several books. This is another one. I picked this up for $4. Pretty cool cover. I really like the look of the cover. And this is from Little Brown and Company out of New York, and it is a 2012 book. And I'll read the inside flap to you, and then we'll wrap this up. So, remember the Alamo. For almost 2 centuries, the last stand at the Alamo has been recognized as a defining moment in America's history. On February 23rd, 1836, a Mexican army, thousands of soldiers strong, attacked a makeshift garrison of about 200 Texas settlers. And among them, Davy Crockett, James Bowie, and William Barrett Travis, who were holed up in the abandoned mission on the outskirts of San Antonio. The Texans refused to surrender, and for almost 2 weeks, the immense force laid siege to the fort, bombarding its occupants with a constant barrage of artillery fire. Then, in the pre-dawn hours of March 6th, the Mexican troops unleashed a final, devastating assault. What happened next would become legend. In The Blood of Heroes, best-selling historian James Donovan, drawing on fresh primary sources in American and Mexican archives, offers an authoritative and thrilling account of this epic battle. Beginning his narrative well before the siege, he tells the fascinating story of the settling of the Texas wilderness and the rise of the Mexican dictator Santa Anna, and the crucial roles played by pioneers such as Sam Houston, Stephen F. Austin, amid the growing storm of despotism and discontent that led the Texas settlers to fight valiantly for independence. The Blood of Heroes is a masterful work of scholarship and storytelling, and is a stirring tale of courage, redemption, and glory in the West. That's the book I read. I thought I read him. That's James Donovan there, and kind of neat end pages there. But he wrote A Terrible Glory, which was all about Custer's last stand, and I read that, and I really enjoyed that book. I knew his name. I couldn't remember what I read that he had written. Of course, it's got A Terrible Glory on the front, but I needed to see that. I needed to see the picture of that cover to remember. But anyway, this is a place I would like to go. I'd love to go to the Alamo, but when we went on spring break last March down to Texas, we were not able to get in there. They had a very, very long waiting line, because they only let so many in because of, I think they were still on COVID restrictions and everything, and it was kind of a mess. And we couldn't get in unless we waited for a long time, and we had to get back home. And so we didn't end up going to the Alamo, which was kind of a disappointment to me because I really wanted to go. But anyway, something to read about it. So if I do ever get to go, I'll know what I'm looking at while I am there. So BookTube, I hope everyone's doing well. I hope you found some books that you can read. Thank you for watching, and until next time, happy reading.